welcome today because it's actually something, this would be the biggest reason, one of the biggest reasons why managers struggle with employee engagement and employee motivation. And I'm really excited to talk about, I'm not sure if you can see this very well, so I'm just going to move the camera and hopefully that's better. Maybe point it down a little bit. Oh, maybe I can't point, there we go. All right. Okay, maybe that's too low. All in the name of good video, I hope. All right, so this is what I want to be sharing today. And to start off, I just want to ask a couple questions. The first question is, how many of you have tried something new or something different to motivate your team, but for some reason it either doesn't work or it works but just not for very long? So like after a couple of days, like the high or the excitement kind of wears off and your employees just go back to their normal performance. So you try something new and it just doesn't work. I mean, how many of you that's happened to? Now, the next question I'm going to ask is, how many of you work for a company that offers some really nice perks, some really nice incentives to work at that company, and logically it's like, this is like a fantastic place to work. This is like the Google of my city or my town. We've got a whole bunch of perks and exciting reasons to work here, but for some reason you still have to motivate your employees, and for some reason you still have to motivate your staff. You still have to deal with performance issues. You still have to deal with people quitting sometimes or people getting fired despite how fantastic your company is. And the third question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask it a little bit differently because I don't want to call you out, but how many of you have worked for a boss where the way that they try and get their people to do what they want them to do is through maybe controlling them, or through just trying to get them to do it or else? So maybe threatening them, threatening to take something away from them, or removing other things so that they have to do it, or using information against them. How many of you have had a boss like that? Because I know that you've never done that. Right, so everybody's experienced one of those three things, where you as a manager have either tried to motivate your staff and it hasn't worked or it hasn't lasted. You've worked for a company, or you've tried to introduce perks, but still find that despite how great your company is, you still have to motivate and inspire your staff. Or three, you've worked for a boss, or you've been this boss, who you try and control people almost by threats, or by using information against them, or just trying to do certain things in a way where they don't have a choice but to perform. We've all experienced this, right? And so the question isn't why do people do this, but the question is, where does this drive for motivating employees come from? Because I think that desire leads to the different reasons I just talked about that obviously don't work. And the answer is, everybody wants to be here, wherever here is for you. And so as a manager, you've got some idea of success or some level of achievement that you want, and that's going to look different for everybody. For some people, it's about rising the corporate ladder, maybe making more money, or finding more responsibility, or more power, or more influence. Maybe it's about providing for your family, and if you can do this, great. Or it's about finding job stability. For others, it's about creating stability for other people. It's about creating jobs. It's about helping other people achieve. But you've got a goal in mind of where you want to be as a leader. And so what every manager does is they try and get from wherever they are to where they want to be, but there's a wall in the way, and that wall is employee performance and employee motivation. Because you need your employees to do well in order for you to achieve whatever goal you have. And so what I want to talk about today is, I guess, the reasons why what you're probably doing isn't sustainable or hasn't worked in the first place. And that's what this whole thing is. And so I'm going to walk through the three things that don't work, and I'm actually going to explain that's not your fault, because one thing I want to point out here is, if you've heard the term employee engagement before, which is a pretty trendy term, it's the measure of an employee's willingness to work hard, or to their passion for the job. And if you were to measure it, and in fact studies are done all the time on this, right now in North America, and it's the same actually worldwide pretty much, 70% of workers are not passionate about their job. So you got about 30% of our workforce, wherever you are, is engaged and motivated to go into work every day and give their best. That's not good. But here's the funny thing. There is, the last stat I looked at was 2015, which was saying that companies are spending over $720 million on employee engagement. And the prediction was, at least at the beginning of 2015, that by now, companies would be spending $1.5 billion a year on employee engagement. But here's the funny thing. Those numbers that I just shared, they don't change. Employees 10 years ago and today are still, on average, more than half are disengaged at work, which leads me to believe whatever you've been told about employee engagement is probably wrong. And here's what most people do. They try bribery. So that's this, where you essentially incentivize somebody. You say, if you perform well, I will give you X. Or I will give you X, now perform well. So this is compensation packages, incentive plans. This is, I give you something, you perform. The problem with this is it's not sustainable, because people who are motivated by these things are always going to want more. So you give them a raise, they want another raise at some point, or they expect another raise at some point. You give them a perk, they now feel entitled to that perk. And so that one doesn't work, although those things are good. You should pay people well. The next one's manipulation. This is one where you've never done this, but your boss may have. And so the image here is of an employee climbing a ladder. And you, as the manager, are holding the ladder and controlling where they go. And so you are telling them what they should do. You're not asking them where they go. And if they're not doing what you want, well, hey, I can always walk away from the ladder. You might fall, but you kind of need me. That's manipulation. And obviously, that one doesn't work as well. That one's not motivating, and that one doesn't lead to long-term change either. Although short-term results, certainly. People don't want to fall off the ladder. And the third one, you may not be able to tell what this is, but this is a bunch of people doing hot yoga. And so this represents all the perks, all the employee engagement tricks and tactics that companies employ. This is where the $720 million is poured into. Here and here. If we give our people a great workplace, they should be happy and perform well. But we all know that doesn't work, because I'll tell you one thing. I may love going to yoga at lunch, or I may love the fresh fruit, or I may love the beanbag chairs or the casual work environment, but that does not mean I'll perform well. Beyond that, if I don't care about these things, I'm still not going to be happy. And if I work for a bad boss or in a bad company, but they give me perks, that doesn't mean I'm going to stay. So if that's where you're pouring your time and energy into perks and making your company better, those are good things, but those are not going to help you break through this wall so you can achieve your goals. And so the question comes down to, how do you get from here to here without using bribery, without using manipulation, and without using employee engagement tactics? How do you get this guy to run through that wall? And what I want to share with you is, really quickly, there's actually been 2 bosses of mine and a client that drastically changed my perspective on employee engagement and employee management through just a very, very small set of tiny changes. Nothing drastic. And so I'm not going to tell you all 3 stories, but I'm going to tell you one really quick. The first story comes in my first job in high school. I worked at McDonald's, and so I was a swing manager, and a swing manager is essentially responsible for a shift. And so what I want you to imagine is a newly promoted high school student manager and McDonald's. If you've ever been to McDonald's at lunch, that place is chaotic, especially on a Saturday, like maybe 11 o'clock in between breakfast and lunch. It's nuts. And so imagine me, the high school student, in a McDonald's with a wrapped drive-thru, a full lobby, maybe someone training on customer service, and I was that guy running around with my head cut off. Not good, right? But there was this manager, and he was the general manager, and he showed me one small thing, and I believed him, because when I watched this guy work, when I watched this guy run his shift, it didn't matter what day of the week. It looked effortless. And think about that for a moment. Effortless leadership. I mean, could you imagine just like walking into work every day to manage and lead your team effortlessly? That's incredible. So let me tell you what he did that made his work so effortless. And he showed me how to do this. So imagine that you've got the customer service desk here, and then you've got drive-through over here, and you've got the grill in the back. He would stand right there. So what he would do is he wouldn't do much work at all while he was running his shift, and he made it, again, effortless. But what he would do is he would look around, and he would identify opportunities where he could jump in and jump out. And so he would jump into a situation, coach real quick for a minute or two, and jump back out. Find another opportunity, jump in, jump out. Find another opportunity, jump in, jump out. The same thing over and over again, and he made the shift look effortless. And the only time that he had to step in and fix something, which I was doing all the time, I was going station to station to station to station, flipping out again like a chicken with my head cut off. The only time he'd have to do any of that is if like a machine fell over. And so one of the small changes that he made that it changed my perspective on employee performance and employee management. And this is just one of the small changes. It was positioning. He stood in a different spot than other people. He wasn't like better at all of the different tasks. He wasn't better at leadership. He just knew that in order to be better, he had to be different. And he stood in a different spot. And lo and behold, when I sat in that spot, I operated differently too. And my shifts ran better from that spot on the floor. And again, that's just one of the changes. But the whole concept here is, what if becoming a better leader, what if getting from where you are today to where you want to be isn't about being better, but it's about operating differently? Because I believe that with just a couple small changes, that was one of them, and I'll share a couple later. We don't have time to share these right now. But I believe that a couple small changes, and you can actually get your employees to run through walls. So there's not just you on the top of this mountain, but it's your entire team that you can take with you just because of small changes. And so I shared one of those today, but I'm actually going to be sharing all of the tips and small changes that you can make. And there's really only a couple small little tweaks to how you manage people that can make the world of a difference. I'm going to be sharing those on a webinar this Thursday, and it's called How to Get Your Employees to Run Through Walls without using bribery, without using manipulation, and without using the latest employee engagement tactics, because as I said, they don't work or they're not sustainable. And I'm going to share all of those things. We just don't have time on this video right now. So if you want to get from where you are today to where you want to be as a manager, and you struggle on some level, which we all do because we've all been there, where we try something new and it doesn't work, or we try to control things and that doesn't work, or we work for a company and it's so many good perks and that doesn't work. So if you've been there and you're like, hey, I'd like my team to perform better, and I'd like not just me to get and achieve my goals, I want my entire team to achieve my goals, I'll show you not just the one tip that I talked about positioning today, but I'll show you a couple other small, tiny changes that you can do to drastically change the way you lead and motivate your team. And you can do that this Thursday on my live webinar. It's going to be 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can register for that over at yourbestmanager.com/webinar. And this is actually day 13 of the What If project that I'm running right now. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. You can go over to yourbestmanager.com/whatif because I've been going live on Facebook every single day for the month of June. And this is the day 13 What If tip. What if you made a couple small little changes and tweaked the way that you operated? Maybe that's even just positioning where you stand. What if that could make a world of a difference in terms of how you led, motivated your team, and the results you got? So register for that, and I will see you this Thursday at, again, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And have an awesome, what day are we today? Tuesday. All right.